Thank you so much. It's really great to be here. I arrived yesterday and I had the opportunity to do a 90-minute long session at the London Business School about the food value chain. Ragn sells, we are a waste management company. So what have we to do with the food value chain? Are we going to recycle waste from the food value chain? No, we will become a raw material supplier and detoxifier. That will be the future. Today, companies come with waste to us and say, here, please take this. I don't want to see it anymore. Do anything with it. And we operate more or less with any waste that we have. That will not exist in the future. So more recycling will not create a circular economy. So circular dimension, the other 50% of current CO2 emissions will be my highlight, not the fossil fuels. I had the opportunity to also be at COP26 in Glasgow, and that was the first time that IPCC mentioned that circularity is a key component if we're going to be able to achieve the ambitions in the Paris Agreement. Especially industry needs to make sure that we can source circular from reused or recirculated raw materials. I will touch a lot about different innovations that can contribute to this one. But first, give me a little introduction more to the company. We are a third-generation family-owned business originating from 1881, when we were a transport company, transporting goods and people with horses, a hauling company. Back then, we also brought back latrines from the inner city of Stockholm to the farmland surrounding Stockholm. So already back then, we brought back phosphorus and nitrogen. The future, we will become a raw material supplier. And you have the example in the bottom right, our first potassium factory, where we take from after waste incineration, we take the ashes and separate out the chlorides. 90 to 95% lower CO2 emissions from the chlorides if you compare to if you're going to mine the potassium in factories. So this is a very concrete example of what a positive impact we have when it comes to circularity. Okay, in 2015, we understood the challenge that we are facing, meaning that we saw that the huge amount of waste are increasing at the same time as all policies drives that we need to reduce the amount of waste. And all policies try to minimize the waste content. This is an average per capita in Sweden, meaning that each and every year we waste 3.8 tons per capita. That's the total amount of household waste from an infrastructure. The challenge is that this 3.8 tons is nothing compared to what we need to mine from our mines, from the forest and so forth. So our conclusion then was that we need to change perspective. It's not about minimizing waste. It's about how to make sure that the resources that are today in current waste can be brought back to the virgin production. Today's focus is here in all policies, all legislation, minimize the waste, but it should be how do I bring it back. So therefore in 2015 we decided we need to change direction. We need to understand our role in the future, and our role in the future is to become this raw material supplier and detoxifier, where we use the urban flows as our source. So the question is, what type of urban flows will we have in the future? Well, poo will we always have as long as we have human beings. So of course, therefore, the sewage became one ingredient. The other one, temporarily maybe for another 100 years, are from waste to energy plants. Again, the ashes are today a very toxic, problematic source, but we have converted that and can separate out the elements and primarily produce high quality raw material, even purer than you produce today from the mines. But then we added on also 3 perspectives. When we're going to produce the resources, we need to make sure that the process eliminate and minimize the need of virgin production. So bring back as much as possible to replace mining. Secondly, we need to make sure we do decontaminate, because since the Industrial Revolution has started in 1850s or something like that, you were ahead of us here in UK, of course. But we have put in a lot of nasty stuff into the ecosystem as well. So we need to make sure that we have the contamination step. And thirdly, of course, we need to make sure that we doesn't put any hindrances to future generations. So of course, the climate issue is there, but all other environmental issues as well. And then we come to something that is very important. Circularity will not only reduce the CO2 emissions, it also makes sure that we can avoid to surpass any of the planetary boundaries. For me, this is a business possibility. If I understand the headaches that the society has and can come back with a solution, and the society understands that there is a solution on the headache, they will buy my painkiller. But the problem is today, current legislation is not really there. We have lined the different things that I'm going to talk about in this another 19 minutes about what we have developed. The core thing, the most important part, are the biogeochemical flows. And what is that? That is phosphorus and nitrogen. Today, totally dominated by linear principles. The phosphorus, 75% of the phosphorus reserve in the world are in one place, Morocco. High content of cadmium and uranium. The purest quality today, the highest quality today, are in Russia. When it comes to nitrogen, how do we produce that? Well, we incinerate natural gas, take it from the atmosphere. Total CO2 emissions just from the fertilizers globally are 3% today. Only the nitrogen production consumes 2% of the world's energy with current way of working. That received the Nobel Prize in 1980, the Haber-Bosch principle. The future for Ragn cells is, yes, we will become a part of the food value chain with our innovation for phosphorus, nitrogen, and potassium. Of course, there's other things as well, but I will cover especially now the food value chain and our future. So then in 2015, we understood we need to transform, we need to change. We had bought a company that had one innovation, this phosphorus innovation. And if you are a medium-sized or small company, it's very hard to just transform the world, to have the world to understand what you can do. But we were very fortunate. We told the right people our potential. So in 2018, we became the example for innovation and leadership for the SDGs. So this is from the high-level political forum. It was my boss doing the speech. I carried the bag. I might have written the speech also, but I will take it in my memoirs. But the interesting part is suddenly they discovered this medium-sized waste management company from Sweden developing a solution that is core. Still, we don't have a single phosphorus factory up and running, but we're very close to open up the first 2 factories in Germany and in Sweden. The problem is still, though, that even if we can produce this high phosphorus quality, purer than the Russian phosphorus, no cadmium, we can't detect it, it's impossible for us to sell it in Europe with that quality. Another thing is that the source are the sewage plants. The problem there is that current wastewater treatment plant, they're not allowed to produce resources. They should do something that is bad, a little bit less bad. So the quality dimension is not in their perspective. Therefore, we need to advocate. I work with public affairs. I have an office in Brussels besides my office in Stockholm, where we also have people on both places. But the core here, we need to change perspective. So for 5 years, we have now advocated for the importance of having current wastewater treatment plant to become the resource plants of tomorrow, producing much more energy, water for reuse, and a huge amount of fertilizers. And if we can boost the market with fertilizers, who do you think will be happy? The farmers. Because then, if we can flood it, the price will go down. So by converting today's wastewater treatment plant into resource plants, we are suddenly making the farmers very, very happy. So hopefully, if there are any farmer here, raise your voice later and say, please do this. One of the speeches here that was mentioned, I will not go through every one of those, are the speech I did for World Customer Organization. So suddenly now we have more and more authorities asking us about advice and how we see the future. The headline of that speech was that not only rich people should be able to buy eggs in the future. Last week I was in Nairobi, invited by the European Commission at the UNEP's General Assembly, UNEA 6, as the example how this transformation can happen. I put on the TV channel the last night, and the news was, there was a woman interviewed who said, oh, the eggs has gone up 300% in price. 2 months earlier, I saw a program from Moscow. The woman said the same thing. Why? Because the cost of phosphorus. We can supply a feed phosphate quality that is perfect to be used, but it's totally banned in Europe. I will come back on that one. Besides the phosphorus innovation, we have, of course, the nitrogen innovation. So let me take a little bit deep dive into the nitrogen innovation. Haber-Bosch received the Nobel Prize, or Haber received the Nobel Prize for the Haber-Bosch principle in 1918, but we have developed a solution where we produce the nitrogen fertilizer directly from the wastewater. So we can take it exactly where they have the high concentrations in the wastewater treatment plant. With the catch and release principle, we reuse the chemical that goes back again and collects another nitrogen molecule. So this is really doesn't need to have energy. The problem normally with current way of recycling nitrogen is that you are putting into large algae bath, and you put when the water goes there, the nitrogen are then emitted back to the atmosphere, and you need to take it back again. But we bypass that. We don't need to take it up to the atmosphere. We can directly produce the fertilizer with no or very low energy need. At the same time, our solution can eliminate the risk of nitrous oxide emissions. And that's a huge challenge that are increasing. We will not take all the nitrogen because we take it in the react water phase, up to 30% of the total nitrogen content. But then we can reduce the load for the wastewater treatment plant. And by taking it in that phase, we can also maximize the biogas production. Because methane doesn't like ammonia. But removing the ammonia, we will increase more energy production. Then we come to the most important maybe, where can you place it? Well, we have demonstrated that it works, and with our first plant last year, both at a landfill, leakage dam, but also at the wastewater treatment plant in Denmark. The quality of the product is very good. If a farmer likes it, it means that it's very good. So both farmers in Sweden and Denmark has proven that they really like the product, the end product. So if I'm going to summarize the positive things, well, this will be easier for the wastewater treatment plant to cope with coming regulations to reduce the nitrogen load. We'll definitely make sure that it's easy to connect to current infrastructure, so you don't need to rebuild the plant. You can add this on, very important. And of course, the nitrogen that you reduce become then a nitrogen fertilizer. And the reduction of the nitrous oxide, or the elimination of the nitrous oxide, has a huge potential. We can also eliminate them together with other solutions. And then, of course, the wastewater treatment plant suddenly generates an income, both from the increased biogas production, but also from the selling of the fertilizer. And what's really, really cool, if wastewater treatment plants need to expand their plants, the cost for this solution will probably be much lower. So plus, plus, plus. Now we're coming to the phosphorus. Besides that we produce a phosphorus of really high quality, the leftover are silica. And at COP28 in Dubai, we had the opportunity to demonstrate the potential. And now we talk about the construction industry, the construction sector. So the silica we have proven can, in this case, reduce the need of cement in concrete productions. So we had a small installation of that. But we can also produce paint, red paint, that also are a challenge we need to mine. So we take the iron directly and produce a red paint. Then we have a little bit of heavy metals. They will be concentrated and sold to the smelters, meaning that you can have, your copper will become a new copper cable in the future. Of course, we will reduce and eliminate and store the cadmium so it's not being emitted back. And then the last part are the precipitation chemicals, the iron chloride, aluminum sulfate. Of course, extracted, separated, and sold back to the wastewater treatment plant. So this is a really circular solution that can create circular material flows and reduce the cost for society and reduce the emissions. The interesting thing with this one, of course, is the challenge. We can't sell it today in Europe. But we have finally signed an agreement with ambition to sell the phosphorus to Canada, because Canada hasn't this legislation in Europe. Yeah, by the way, you exit Brexit here. Maybe you can change your legislation more easily. Then suddenly your farmers will be really happy to buy phosphorus of high quality that you don't need to risk of being left alone. So let's talk about that afterwards. There's another source that we also have developed a method to use, and that's fish poo. We collect fish poo in the ocean, or to be honest, it is in the fish farms. But one big problem that we have going forward is the way how we're going to produce more food. So we need to use the aquaculture much more. But we have developed a method where we can collect the fish poo in the fish farms, but that eliminating the risk of eutrophication. And then what we do, the next step is we transport it today with 4 boats going back and forth between Norway and Denmark for biogas production. How much energy can they produce? Well, if you take the fish poo that today is emitted in the Norwegian fjords, we can power 600,000 households with energy, but then huge amount of nitrogen and phosphorus as well. So, and the ambition that Norway have, they will not have a chance to expand their fish production if they don't have a solution to collect the fish poo. So here we have the medicine for their headache. At the same time as we are getting less dependent on virgin production. These are 2 examples of where I have worked with the food industry, the food sector, the wastewater treatment plant and the fish poo. And we saw the potential to do even more. So therefore, in New York last year, we launched the 10 billion challenge. How can we feed 10 billion people on the planet by 2050 when 70% will live in cities? Of course, it means that we can't solve everything, so we did a challenge to invite others. So if you are in the food industry or believe that you can contribute, please sign up on the challenge. But there's one other dimension of the 10 billion challenge, that we need to build those cities as well. Especially, we know that the megacities will increase, and the number of people living in the megacities will increase. So therefore, the building material, where do we produce that? How can we produce that sustainable? Well, there's a small amount of this silica from the wastewater treatment plant, but a huge amount from other sources. Here we have developed a solution that we're going to use carbon dioxide as an input in stored ash mountains in Estonia, where we'll extract calcium oxide and combine it with carbon dioxide. And if anyone is a chemist here, then you know it becomes calcium carbonate or limestone. In this case, we produce a high quality precipitated calcium carbonate, perfect for floorings, plastics in construction sector and so forth, paints, even vegan milk, as I understand. They need to be whiter so they can use our solution. In total, the first factories that we are planning has a storage or the potential with ash mountains that are from old incineration, energy incineration in Estonia, has a total of 1,000 years with the first plant. And of course, the more plants we build, the less we need to mine limestone. So I would like now to give a short message from 3 politicians that believe this is really important.
You don't have to believe in climate change. You only have to know that all your partners, trading partners, the ones with whom you trade in services as well, they simply will not buy goods and services which are produced not in a clean way.
We have a saying, those who are late will get nothing. We don't want to be left behind. We want to find Estonian niche where we could be strong, where we could be number one in the world.
This ultra-pure and carbon-neutral calcium carbonate are produced of oil shale ash remains after electricity production.
What is very nice is that we are using two waste streams, the ash and the calcium from it, and also CO2. And we put them together, and we have a fantastic product for the market. Something that is used in everyday items, calcium carbonate.
This is precisely the purpose of Ragn Cells project, turning the old heaps of oil shale ash into a useful chemical component with captured CO2. It is a great example of carbon circularity.
So hopefully in 2028, if legislation in Europe are changed so we can source CO2, because today if you catch CO2, it should bury it under the seabed. So this is another example of a challenge. But here we really have supporters that want it to happen. There are 3 examples, and we have even more now in the European Commission. So I believe it will happen. I've now gone through the food value chain and just introduce you very shortly to the construction sector. These are the 2 big things going forward if you're going to create the world that we would like to live on going forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Per. It's really fascinating. Really enjoyed that. Just tell me, how can others, if there's anyone here watching or in the room, if they want to be part of the 10 billion challenge as well, how can they get involved in that?
Please Google 10billionchallenge.org. If you google.com, you will come to the same page. Sign up there. We'll make sure that we contact you afterwards and understand what is your contribution, how can we, together with you, develop the next step. And of course, I'm really interested to understand in UK or in Scotland. And by the way, I believe that the ash mountain in Estonia has also a smaller friend or a smaller ash mountain in Scotland, as I'm informed. So the potential for this PCC production would be potential in the future, the same type of factory also there.
Well, your friends in the UK welcome you if the friends in the EU are not doing.
Oh, I love that. I love it.
Thank you, Per. Thank you.